Oh, well, hello and welcome to Commercial Truck Training. My name is Will Brogan, here with the boss Ken Taylor, and we got another episode of Coach's Corner for you. This one is something that is really a hot button topic, isn't it?
Oh boy, it truly, truly is, and we struggle with this constantly, and we've got some very strong opinions regarding this topic.
There's some really, really good people that are having really, really difficult battles with this particular one.
Yeah.
And so that's in part why it's a hot button. This is whether or not you should be a producing manager. And give a little bit of an overview. We can go for miles on this one.
Oh, absolutely.
Give a little bit of kind of an ignition to this.
Well, and this typically is with a newer dealership.
Correct.
The long-term dealerships have learned their lesson, or it's with a dealership that wants to start out with just one person,
Right,
and do everything.
Right.
Which we call that the one-man show, and that's a whole podcast by itself, a whole video by itself.
Training module on the site, coaching plan. Yep.
Oh, it is.
That's a very unique segment.
So, to produce or not to produce, we are very, very adamant about this. And over 20 years of doing this, I've seen it, and I've learned the hard way that being and demanding a producing manager limits your ability to grow. It eliminates your accountability within your program because producing manager doesn't have time to hold people accountable.
Yep.
It's really an obstacle to truly growing your business as much as you could. And I can think of the very best example, Will, one of our very good dealerships, McGrath Auto, great people, Pat McGrath, Murphy, Gavin.
Oren.
Oren is awesome. Incredible people who have really understood and listened to us on this topic. We started with McGrath. We had two guys at the Chevy store, Tyler and Jeff, and they're still there. And then we started with one guy at the Chrysler store. Yeah. And that was Steve.
Mm-hmm.
It started working. It started growing. The guys did what we asked them to do to a T, but then it got to that point where we needed someone to manage the operation.
Yeah.
And when I first went to the McGraths on that, they were not opposed to it. They saw the value in it because every other department has either a GM or a department manager, service manager, parts manager. Why shouldn't commercial have a manager? And they actually came up with a really good candidate. I couldn't have thought of a better candidate myself than Andy Burns. Yeah. Andy was the retail sales manager. But the great thing about Andy, number one, he supported the commercial program from the very start. If commercial clients came in, he made sure his guys sent them to the commercial department. He was just a big supporter. So he was a natural to take over that. But initially, the McGraths wanted Andy to be a producing manager.
Right.
And he did that for a while, but he did so much to help his guys grow. As soon as the family saw what the growth was by Andy being able to go out and make sales calls with his guys, to be able to support his guys, they quickly saw that we're going to get a lot more business with a non-producing manager than a producing manager because he's going to hold the guys accountable. He's going to be able to go on sales calls with them. He's going to be able to run the numbers. And some of the things we require from a manager too take time. We want a weekly report that goes to management showing all the things we're doing. When we get a complaint from a dealership that, the retail side doesn't understand, or my dealer principal doesn't understand, or my general manager doesn't understand, shame on you.
Sure.
You should have sent them that weekly report that keeps them in the loop, because if they don't know what you're doing, they will assume the worst. They will assume that your guys are out at the local sports bar, which is not a bad place to get business.
No, it's not.
But or that you're not making sales calls, that you're just fooling around. Whereas with that report, it keeps them in the loop, and you get a lot more concessions and things that you need, including more inventory, more support from other aspects of the dealership. So being a non-producing manager is critical. But, and I'll put this with a big caveat, You can't be a non-producing manager that's sitting around all day.
No.
You have, at least once a week, you have to be out with one of your sales guys. We prefer 2 days a week, so you can hit 2 of your sales guys. Andy does a tremendous job of that, and it's amazing. They're uncovering leads and opportunities all the time. So be an active sales manager and be a true sales manager, not an operational manager. Operations you have to take care of, and the tasks you have to take care of, but it cannot get in the way of being on sales calls with your guys. A top manager has one-on-ones on a weekly basis with his people, making sure he knows what, or she knows what they're going to be doing, how they're going to be doing it,
Yes.
and where they're going to be doing it.
In our coaching plan series on our online training in Championship Coach, we spend a lot of time talking about 10-minute reviews,
Absolutely.
which is that concept in a nutshell. But there's obviously
Yeah,
more
it's
to it.
critical. When people say, well, I don't have time. Well, you've got time to spend 10 minutes just saying, hey, where are you going this week? What are you going to be doing? And what kind of support do you need?
Yeah.
That manager also can make sure the guys attend trade associations.
Yes.
We
That's
see it all the
glad you brought
time. We
that
go
up.
into dealerships where they've been a member for 5 years and no one's gone to a meeting in 5 years. That's the responsibility of that commercial manager, to make sure they're at those meetings, that they're supporting the trade associations as well as business
Yeah,
networking
and
groups.
events and making sure those are executed properly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
The interesting thing happened when Andy became a non-producing manager is sales exploded, Will. It was amazing. He had time to think strategically, to think creatively, and now those guys are so busy. I'm so proud of the McGrath organization. They, more than anybody we've ever worked with, have taken all of our concepts and they've implemented every single one of them 100%.
That's why we refer to them so often. Because it's,
Oh, absolutely.
they're
We talk
poster
about it
child for that.
constantly.
Yeah.
They did over 1,000 units last year.
Yep.
And this year, I can safely say they'll probably do over 2,000 units. And Cedar Rapids, Iowa is not the biggest city in the world. It's not Los Angeles. It's not Atlanta. But I'll tell you what, these guys have really maximized it. And all of the credit goes to that sales team, but also a lot of the credit goes to Andy Burns, who has just really been the consummate sales manager versus an operational manager.
Now let's take it and turn it from the absolute ultimate positive that McGrath is and Andy is to the person that still has to be the selling manager. One of the
Yeah.
drawbacks that you didn't mention in the beginning of this piece was that in certain situations, especially depending on personalities, that sales manager may still have to be competing
Absolutely.
with people that work in the same dealership that they're supposed to be managing. That dynamic is awful. And we've seen that.
Oh, we have.
And we've
We
seen it
have.
be detrimental, and we've seen people leave both sets of positions because of that.
Yeah.
But the other side of that person that I have, that visual in my head, in a lot of cases, they want to help the people that they're managing, but they can't get out and help them because they're working their own deals. So the
Yeah.
people under them don't get to grow much like the McGrath guys did.
Yeah, and we see that with one of our long-term dealerships,
Yeah.
to be unnamed, where we've got an incredibly talented sales manager who also happens to be an incredibly talented sales guy.
Right.
And he's having to sell and try to manage at the same time.
There's just not enough time to be able to do
Not
that.
enough time in the day. And,
Right.
and my fear in those situations is burnout, where
Yes.
you can't, you can't be all things to all people.
Right.
And you've got to make a decision. So that's something we're struggling with, but I think we're making a little bit of headway on that side. But again, thanks for bringing that up, Will. It's tough. You can't.
Yeah, because there are probably more dealerships out there that are in that situation than in McGrath's situation.
Absolutely.
And we wanted to point that out of, hey, that we've learned through experience and seeing these people, that's not the way to truly be successful.
Absolutely.
You must shut down the sales part of the manager and let them manage
Yes.
and lead the rest of the department.
Yes. And the same token, the general manager and / the dealer principal have to make sure they hold that person accountable.
Right. Yeah, there's that aspect.
Yeah,
Of
we
course,
recommend. That's why we like our weekly write-ups that we send that they send out to management. and how they manage it. And don't think it can't be done. And on a positive example, I love to use Mike Stubbs, who's a longtime commercial manager. I've known Mike for almost 20 years. We've been close personal friends that whole time. And he manages several locations, including several brands, with the Chrysler store, with the Chevy store, at Huff Hines in Texas. And Mike's probably the epitome of how to do it right. Also, if we were going to do a panel discussion, I can already know who would be on that on that panel, and it would definitely be Mike Stubbs, and it would definitely be Andy, and I can think of a couple more. AJ Hewitson being.
I'm liking where this idea is going, sir.
Yeah, I think we're moving in the right direction.
Strategical improv right here on the Coach's Corner.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. Just some incredible managers that could give a whole seminar on it.
Yeah.
So, for you dealers and you GMs out there saying, okay, we need a manager, but I'd really like him to produce, you're making a huge mistake.
Yes.
You will do far more business if he keeps the salespeople on the streets and holds them accountable and makes sales calls with them than if what one man can do. Think about this. You're multiplying his effect or her effect.
Yes.
So instead of one person selling more, we can have 3, 4, 5 people selling more. And
more efficiently.
And more efficiently. That's why we're so opposed to a producing commercial sales manager versus a true 100% motivational, leadership-oriented sales manager that's not competing with his people or her people. So keep that in mind.
That's all we got for this topic, right?
Yeah, that's it. And hopefully you learn a valuable lesson.
Yes. Thanks so much.
Take care.